My grandma doesn't stop fighting with my dad. To start off, I'm a 14-year-old male, and there's no specific date for this story as it's a thing that's been going along for my entire life. To give a bit of context for this, the grandma I'm talking about is the one from my mother's side of the family, as the one from my father's had also died in 2017. I never really knew my grandparents from my father's side of the family, but since my dad is a very open person, he shared a lot of his own childhood with me. And while his parents weren't abusive or neglectful, they were far from being parents of the year, leading to my dad studying in Texas rather than Germany, which is where they lived, and also where my parents live today. My mother's parents were far better parents overall, which I personally think being at least a bit from the fact that my mother's parents were born after WW2, while my father's parents were in their 20s while it happened. One little notion that my grandma and my dad don't get along that well was that while I was younger, whenever I'd visit my grandparents, it would always be my mother coming along with me, and my dad would never join us. The main thing that I'll be talking about, though, happened only last month. My grandparents would be in town a few weeks due to my uncle and aunt who lived next to our house going on a 4-week honeymoon trip to London and needed someone to take care of their 8-month-old daughter. They decided to visit us for a dinner while they were there, and all was well, but while we were eating and everyone finished their main course, my mother went into the kitchen to prepare the dessert. My grandpa, who was a former football player, it was the team of a very small town, so I won't bother mentioning it. He started talking to my dad about his own work life, and while they had very different careers, as my dad is a consultant, they always got along very well and had very similar backgrounds/childhoods. They spoke for a while, and then my grandma randomly blurted out her famous, "Well, by the way, she does this every time my dad was having a conversation." Before I tell you, a bit of context will be needed. My dad and grandfather were mostly talking about what their fathers told them about how it was during WW2. While I am a child, I have no real issues with them doing this, as I also have a personal interest in war history, and my parents and grandpa actually support this interest. However, my grandmother is one of those, "Oh, no child should even know what a gun is," and "Oh, every life is precious and things meant for killing are hell spawn." In summary, she's very naive, who would even treat a 17-year-old like a 5-year-old because they were still 1 year away from adulthood. What she ended up saying, though, was as following: "Well, my dad's name. I understand you two talk about this, but still, why would you start a conversation like this with your son here?" Before my dad responded, I just decided to say my view, which was that I don't mind them talking about this and actually find it quite interesting. Which she followed up with, "Oh, my dear, trust me, you don't want to hear about this terrible stuff." I don't know why, but for some reason after my dad just reassured my grandma that I had interest in this stuff, and it was also my current history subject in school, my grandma just snapped. She started yelling at my dad about how him even letting me know about these things made him a terrible father and how he didn't deserve parenthood. She went on for about 30 seconds before my grandpa said, "My grandma's name, just stop, only because my name knows about this and has interest in it. And you think that's awful because you were raised differently. It doesn't make my son-in-law a bad father." She started seeming confused and uncomfortable before deciding to leave, but it doesn't end here. When she got up, she tried to take me with her and took my arm and just said, "Let's go." I aggressively pulled back my arm and sat back down. When she looked at me confused, my grandpa just gave her one of those go-to-your-room looks that only men in who've been trough parenthood seem to be able to do, and she then finally left. My mom came back shortly after with the dessert, and when she asked where my grandma was, my grandpa just told her the story, and with my mother being the daughter, she completely understood and believed it. Over dessert, my mother spoke with my dad about how while we would still be coming to my grandparents' golden wedding celebration, which is the name for a couple's 50th wedding day, we would be taking up on the offer that my mom's older sister, or in other words, my second aunt, had made us, that the three of us could stay with her family rather than with them. My grandpa completely understood and left about an hour later. That was the end of that. And I'm just happy my grandpa is not the kind of husband to just stand by instead of putting his wife in her place. It did come with one upside, though, as I really like the aunt and uncle we'd be staying with for the golden wedding party, as we'd be there for 2 weeks before the actual party. They also have 2 kids, a 20-year-old daughter and 17-year-old son, whom I get along with very well. They also have 2 dogs who are just the cutest. But back to the point, I'll update this post in case any more outrageous things happen during the time when there, but for now there's not much else to say. Just wanted to put this out there, and feel free to share any of your opinions on this.